So I pulled up Substance Painter here, and I'm actually showing a different um, mesh that's also a part of the fire hydrant and all its components. But I was just happy with how I textured this. I kind of want to show that. But before I do that, I'm going to show how we go about baking an asset. This mesh was done the same way with the previous one, where we remesh all of the components. This is the low poly, as you can see here. This is the UV map laid out over here. Um, and yeah, so in Substance Painter, we've got the layers here, and we'll go to texture set settings. Oops. Um, and just make sure that some of our settings here are set up correctly. We got it set up to 2048. Um, and we'll come to bake mesh maps, which is where you bake all of these to your mesh. I'll unselect everything here, and just leave normal selected, um, so that we can just make sure that our settings are set up correctly, our names were set up correctly, so that we don't, go through here, check everything here, and bake, and then come to find, or bake, wait for a minute or so, and then come to find out, oh, our my names here were incorrect, um, and you have to go back and fix that. Um, so yeah, we just do that so we can speed up the process a little. But you come here, you select your mesh that you want to bake. You want to come here to select the high poly. Make sure you select the high. Um, Come down here to by mesh name. So if it's set to always, it'll disregard the names that you gave it, the underscore low and underscore high, and it'll just or sorry, no, it doesn't disregard that. It um wait, does it? I don't quite remember. Why am I forgetting that? That's fine. Um, so we leave normal selected, and we come here to change um, match to by mesh name, so that um, the names that you gave of underscore low and underscore high, and then making sure that um, nuts is nuts. Nuts is um, nuts underscore low and nuts underscore high both match, and that they both bake together only, because sometimes you'll have this portion of the mesh bake accidentally to something else, and you don't want that. You want only to have one piece bake to the other piece that it's named after, if that makes sense. So we'll just set that to by mesh name. And this here, max frontal distance and max rear distance, you can change. Hopefully you can kind of see this cage here. You can expand this cage or bring it in. Um, Usually the default one works fine, and we'll leave it at default. And so if I bake selected textures and we come back here, we can see that um, our mesh is baked from the high poly. And this, you know, looks good. We can kind of go back and forth between the low poly without the bake, and then we can see we have nice clean bevels while keeping the low poly mesh like that. Yeah, and so we'll continue. So yeah, it looks good. No no baking errors. Um, and if I kind of squish this max frontal distance down, I can kind of show what a baking error may look like. So as you can see, we got this odd, square here. Got some other stuff that look a little messed up, and this is basically just because the max frontal distance is off. However, if names are also off, this whole mesh, along with some other ones, may be completely messed up. So you just make sure that the names are fixed and the cage is the right size, and you'll end up with something that you think would work well. So now I'll go and bake everything else. Once baked, we can come up here and click through them. So I'll use the arrows on the keyboard. So normal map, you can come here and look at and diagnose things, but typically you're gonna look at it and be confused anyways. This is the ambient occlusion, which I mentioned earlier in the textures section. And as you can see, it's just self-shadowing. This allows for this allows for self-shadowing. If I turn this off, you kind of see it disappears a little bit, the dark corners, and it adds a little more realism. We'll come to curvature. This allows us to add some, like cracks or wear and tear around the edges, or just simply highlight the edges. This is a super helpful one for texturing. The other one is position. So it is just a color texture, but if you separate, green, red, and blue, green, and red channels, they'll have a gradient coming from up and down, and then or up the side and from this side as well. And this just can kind of help with certain parts of texturing. So we've baked our mesh, and it's a nice high poly looking mesh, except with the magic of baking, it's still the low poly looking mesh, or the low poly mesh just looks high poly. So I'll come here and show just a bit of the process